Let's go take a look at how we manage errors and how we handle when things don't go as planned. Now obviously errors happen quite a bit in any Excel processing that you do. For example, with lookup, when you use VLOOKUP, suppose that you can't find the value. Well, in that case, Excel returns the #NA error. So we can use a function called ifError to help us detect the error and provide an alternative. Now that's not the only kind of error that can occur. For example, let's say you do some kind of division. What if you divide by 0? Or what if you do some kind of processing and the substring can't be found? Or you do a match lookup and the match cannot be found. So in that case, using ifError can make your spreadsheet a lot more robust because it doesn't fail when an operation fails. So ifError is somewhat similar to if, except that there's no condition to test. ifError basically says I'm going to evaluate some value, some expression, and if it works, great, I'll put the value of that expression into the cell. If it doesn't work, then I'll put the value of the error into the cell. I basically put this thing right here. Whatever you tell me, I'll put in here. So for example, right here, I'm going to say, well, we're going to try to do a VLOOKUP of health rates. If it works, great, I'll put the value of VLOOKUP in the cell. If it doesn't work, I'll put the value of 0 into the cell. Let's look at a very simple example. Suppose I got a cell here. A1 contains the value 10. A2 contains the value 20. And in here, all I do is A2 divided by A1. Of course, as long as I have the appropriate values, it all works fine. But let's say I put in here the value 0. Of course, you cannot divide any number by 0. So Excel gives you an error. Error is always shown with a pound, some kind of an error condition, and then an exclamation mark. So what if I want to avoid this? I mean, obviously I can't avoid dividing by 0, but what if I want something other than the incorrect calculation in there? Let's say that I want to change this so that ifError, so if there's an error with that expression, then I want to put the value -99 in here. It's probably not a very good value, or probably leave the cell empty because you can't do the calculation. So if it's 5, you get the correct value. If it's 0, you get empty. So we can apply this to the example we've been working with. So let's say we're going to try to figure out the health premium. I'm going to do a VLOOKUP here of the health premium of whatever health plan that they've chosen from the health plan rates table right here. Let's go ahead and try the VLOOKUP for this. So here's what a VLOOKUP would look like. We're going to look up F2 in the table A2 through B6, and we look for the second column if we get a match in the first column. Remember that if you look at the table right here, the first column always has to include the values that you're looking up, and then you have a number of values afterwards you can look up. So we're going to look for the second column in this table right here. First column contains the lookup values, second column contains the actual values. So everything works fine, and we can copy this down as long as we anchor things properly. Of course, I'm going to have to put my anchors in here. Make sure that my rows don't get adjusted as a copy down, because I don't want to start looking up in A3 through B7 and A4 through B8. The table doesn't move along with us. So at least we can do that. We can look things up. It all works fine, but we have one problem right here. None is not one of the health plan rates. Actually, slight change. I got to make sure I put a false over here to make sure I get an exact match. So let's copy that down. And of course, I get my error right here. I'm looking for the health plan none in that plan table. Of course, it's not there. Can't find it. So VLOOKUP returns as an NA. So what I want to do is I want to put a 0 in here, because obviously there's no health premium if the plan cannot be found. So I need to modify that function so that if there's an error on the VLOOKUP, I want to put a 0 in here. So look at how this works. So the VLOOKUP, the ifError asks us for an expression, but the VLOOKUP is part of the expression. If there's an error with that expression, then the value 0 gets put in there. If there's no error with that expression, the value of that expression, whatever it is, gets put into the cell. So since there was no error, I get the exact return value of VLOOKUP. And down here, because there is an error, I get the 0 instead. To prove that it's really 0, if I change that up here to text error, see what you would get? You would get the text error. Of course, it's not a very useful value in this case, because you want to eventually do calculations with that number. So we're going to have to make sure that it works properly. And that's it. That's all about if error.